Nate Wright, an energetic and overconfident sixth grader who believes he's destined for greatness. The story unfolds over the course of a single school day, beginning with Nate waking up in a panic, worried about a forgotten social studies test. His morning is chaotic. He skips breakfast, forgets his lunch, and rushes to school, only to realize there is no test after all. His best friends, Francis and Teddy, join him in navigating the day's challenges, which include dealing with teachers, classmates, and his longtime rival, Gina. Nate's day takes a turn when he receives a fortune cookie that reads, "Today you will surpass all others." Convinced that this is a sign of his impending greatness, he embarks on a series of attempts to prove his superiority. However, his efforts repeatedly backfire, landing him in trouble with teachers and earning him multiple detention slips. From writing an ill-fated love poem to his crush Jenny, to attempting to break a world record by speed-eating green beans in the cafeteria, Nate's antics escalate throughout the day. His overconfidence and impulsiveness lead to a series of humorous mishaps, culminating in a chaotic encounter with Principal Nichols. Despite his failures, Nate's resilience and optimism remain intact. The novel blends traditional storytelling with comic strips and illustrations, making it a lively and engaging read. It explores themes of friendship, ambition, and the humorous struggles of middle school life, resonating with young readers who see themselves in Nate's exaggerated but relatable experiences. Nate begins the story as an exuberant, overconfident, and somewhat reckless sixth grader who believes he is destined for greatness. He constantly interprets minor events, like the fortune cookie message, as signs that he is special, leading him to take increasingly bold and misguided actions. Throughout the novel, Nate's character traits evolve in subtle but meaningful ways. His impulsiveness and arrogance result in a string of misadventures, but each failure teaches him something about himself. By the end, he remains confident, but his resilience and adaptability become more evident. Instead of dwelling on his mistakes, he learns to embrace them with humor and optimism, proving that while his grand schemes may not always succeed, his ability to bounce back is his greatest strength. The growth in Nate's character is not about a dramatic transformation. He is still the same energetic and mischievous kid, but rather about small moments of self-awareness. His friendships with Francis and Teddy and his interactions with teachers and classmates help shape his understanding of himself, making him more relatable and endearing to readers. Nate's friends, Francis and Teddy, play a vital role in shaping his character throughout the story. While Nate is impulsive, overly confident, and often caught up in his own grand visions of success, his friends serve as a grounding force, providing both encouragement and reality checks. Francis, the intellectual and level-headed one, frequently offers logical advice and helps Nate navigate the consequences of his missteps. He acts as a counterbalance to Nate's recklessness, reminding him when his schemes are unlikely to succeed and attempting, though often unsuccessfully, to keep him out of trouble. His rational approach highlights Nate's tendency to act before thinking, reinforcing the idea that planning and consideration are important. Teddy, on the other hand, shares Nate's mischievous streak, but is slightly more pragmatic. He encourages Nate's enthusiasm, but also isn't afraid to point out when things are going south. He provides comic relief and supports Nate in his antics, but he also helps him see the humor in failure rather than dwelling on his mistakes. Together, Francis and Teddy help shape Nate's resilience. Their friendship teaches him that, while he may not always succeed in his wild endeavors, he is never truly alone. They accept him for who he is, quirks and all, reinforcing the idea that his personality is what makes him special, not the grand achievements he desperately seeks. By the end of the novel, Nate remains ambitious and optimistic, but he also starts to recognize the value of having friends who genuinely support him, even when he's at his most chaotic. Nate's friends, Francis and Teddy, stand out among the Big Nate characters because they genuinely support and balance him, unlike others who challenge or frustrate him. Francis and Teddy are loyal, though they don't blindly agree with Nate's antics. They keep him grounded when his overconfidence leads to chaos, offering reality checks that help shape his resilience. Their friendship is based on mutual respect and camaraderie, making them distinct from characters like Gina, Mrs. Godfrey, or even Nate's crush, Jenny. Gina. Unlike Francis and Teddy, Gina is Nate's academic rival. She's intelligent but competitive, constantly clashing with Nate over grades and teacher favoritism. Her calculated nature contrasts sharply with Nate's carefree attitude. Mrs. Godfrey. As Nate's strict social studies teacher, she represents authority rather than companionship. Their relationship is more adversarial, as Nate sees her as his nemesis. Jenny. Nate has an unshakable crush on Jenny, but she barely acknowledges him. Her indifference makes their dynamic one-sided, unlike his friendship with Francis and Teddy, where interactions are mutual and meaningful. While others challenge, frustrate, or ignore him, Francis and Teddy accept Nate for who he is, flaws and all. They provide a mix of support, humor, and realism, helping him grow in a way that his interactions with Gina, Mrs. Godfrey, or Jenny do not. Gina plays an important role in Big Nate. In a class by himself, as Nate's academic rival and primary source of frustration in school, she is the quintessential teacher's pet, high-achieving, rule-following, and eager to impress authority figures, which makes her the complete opposite of Nate's rebellious and carefree personality. Throughout the story, Nate views Gina as a thorn in his side. She constantly reminds him of his shortcomings, whether it's his bad grades or his tendency to land in detention. Her perfectionism and confidence in her academic abilities infuriate Nate, who sees her as smug and overly obedient. In contrast, Gina sees Nate as immature and reckless, dismissing his antics as unnecessary distractions. Their rivalry often leads to humorous conflicts, as Nate tries and fails to outshine her in ways that backfired spectacularly. Despite their clashes, Gina serves as a foil to Nate. Her presence highlights his impulsiveness and resistance to authority, making his personality even more distinct. While she rarely shows much warmth toward him, her rivalry pushes Nate to attempt, though not always successfully, to prove himself in school. In many ways, Gina represents the kind of student Nate wishes he could be, successful and admired, but his rebellious nature keeps him from following in her footsteps. Gina stands out among Nate's rivals because her challenges are intellectual rather than physical or social. Unlike Nate's antagonistic relationships with characters like Mrs. Godfrey or Arthur, Gina's rivalry is rooted in academics and competition rather than personal dislike. Here's how Gina compares with other rivals in Big Nate. Mrs. Godfrey. While Gina frustrates Nate with her academic superiority, Mrs. Godfrey, his strict social studies teacher, actively enforces discipline. Nate sees her as his arch nemesis, but unlike Gina, she is an authority figure, not a peer. Gina's challenges push Nate in a different way. She makes him feel inferior in the classroom, whereas Mrs. Godfrey punishes his behavior. Arthur, Jenny's boyfriend, is another source of frustration for Nate, though in a very different way. Instead of competing intellectually, Nate resents Arthur for being effortlessly likable and seemingly perfect. Where Gina is strict and competitive, Arthur is polite and well-meaning. But Nate still sees him as an obstacle to his romantic aspirations. Randy is more of a classic school bully, someone who physically intimidates Nate rather than competing with him academically. His rivalry with Nate stems from social hierarchy rather than personal achievements, making him a very different kind of antagonist compared to Gina. Gina differs from these rivals because her conflict with Nate doesn't involve bullying or authority. It's purely about intellect, grades, and proving who is superior in school. Her rivalry pushes Nate to want success, but instead of motivating him, it mostly annoys him. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe.